It's 9:30 and we are going up, 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 up. Day 1 on the Magna Via Francigena. We left at 7 a.m. in the morning and Palermo was already wide awake. Street markets opening, bars full, coffee cups clinking, the city already doing the absolute most before breakfast. We headed to the official starting point of the Magna Via, the Palermo Cathedral, a place that feels like a summary of all the civilization that had passed through the city. Then we had our first breakfast, pistachio croissant, cappuccino, and then an arancino, a very balanced start, obviously.
We have our first stop.
And off we went. A long stretch of asphalt carried us out of the city until the views finally opened up and we reached Monreale, a place that felt cozy, calm, and strangely like home. Then came our first pilgrim sign, one cannolo, and a lot more climbing. And then on the other side, the reward. The view over Lago di Piana degli Albanesi and Santa Cristina Gela, where the Alberesce community still keeps its language and roots alive, like a small world within Sicily. And that was day 1, not the Sicily of postcards, but the one that reveals itself slowly.
You know, when you use Mamma Mia, when you walk the second day of Via Francigena, you see those shoes.
Mamma mia!
Day 2 on the Magna Via Francigena. We woke up in Santa Cristina Gela, had a good coffee, a very good view, and set off with absolutely no idea what the day was about to do to us. On paper, this stage was simple, a long walk through the Sicilian countryside all the way to Corleone. In reality, it was mud, water, surprise rivers, and the kind of path that makes you question your life choices just a little. After the heavy rains of the previous weeks, parts of the trail were still soaked. We crossed the little streams, walked through sections that had been flooded, and spent a good part of the day trying to stay upright and at least slightly dignified.
This is the hardest stretch I've ever walked on any Camino.
But somehow it was also one of the most beautiful stages we've ever walked. Endless with fields, mountains, animals, silence, space, peace all around. And then, like an oasis at the end of a very long day, Corleone appeared. 28 kilometers later, completely exhausted, we arrived. Do you think this is Switzerland? Think again. Day 3 on the Magna Via Francigena, in Sicily. We started the day in Corleone with an offer we couldn't refuse. Have coffee, and then for a change, keep walking. After the first climb, we looked back and saw Corleone from above, already feeling far away. This stage is about 20 kilometers. Crossing old rural tracks, fields, and big open views on the way to Prizzi. And honestly, if nobody had told us where we were, Sicily would not have been our first guess. It was hot, but sweet Sicilian oranges kept us alive, more or less. There were blooming flowers everywhere and wide green hills. Then we reached Masseria Embriaca, an old countryside estate, and stopped to feed ourselves and our new travel companion, Mr. Cat. Later, we reached Lago di Prizzi, a quiet artificial lake sitting in the middle of open land, as if Sicily was casually showing off again. And then finally Prizzi. We were completely cooked, but the mountain outside our window did a very good job of bringing us back to life. And this is how Ricky got the Magna Via Francigena fever. Day 4, walking the Magna Via Francigena. This stage crosses the heart of the Monti Sicani, through woods, open clearings, old rural paths, and traces of the Arab and Norman world that once shaped this land. And for the first time in days, we had shade. Actual, beautiful, and restoring shade. Somewhere in the middle we reached Borgo Riena, a ghost village with just one church, one school, and a few houses left. One of those places built so farming families could live closer to the field. By then we were very ready for food, and Sicily once again did not disappoint. One thing we are really loving about Sicily is this. When you arrive hungry and ask, is the kitchen still open? The answer is never no. It's more like, what would you like to eat? Even if they have to invent the meal from 2 ingredients and pure love. And then Giorgio, our host. took us up above the village for sunset to Rocca di San Vitale, where the remains of the old Norman stronghold still watch over the valley. At sunset, Giorgio left us with one sentence and this interpretation of it. Si figuri tanti ritagli, a child of many fragments. And although in some places it sounds like an offense, in that moment, standing there above the village, it felt like the whole island could be described that way, shaped by many hands, many histories, and people still generous enough to make you feel at home in it. And if you think Camino is only about walking, let us tell you what happened today. Day 5 on the Magna Via Francigena in Italy. We spent the day walking through olive trees, crossing a few more little streams, and reaching the Grotte di Capelvenere, an ancient site of caves carved into the rock, once used as a burial place by the Sicani, and also linked to the cult of Tanit. We also walked with our pilgrim friend Dario from northern Italy, and one of those people who quietly makes the day better just by being there.
Quali hai fatto?
Soprattutto all'estero camminavo, Spagna e Francia, li ho fatti un po' tutti, quelli di Santiago. Poi, dovuto anche al Covid, ho iniziato a camminare in Italia, devo dire che ho riscoperto un'altra realtà, anche in Italia è bello camminare, ed è simile a Santiago, per non dire ancora più bello, perché ci sono posti fantastici che non hanno nulla da invidiare alla Spagna, al Portogallo, come questo cammino qua, la Magna Via Francigena. Non è semplice questo cammino, è un po' duro. Io sono allenato e non ho problemi particolari, però bisogna essere allenati un po'.
We arrived in San Giovanni Gemini and found them building the structure right next to our accommodation, already preparing for June, when the feast of Jesus of Nazareth takes over the town. Each year, they build a huge ceremonial wooden tower known as the Triumphal Cart. We love it, because this route is not just about walking through Sicily, but about slowly understanding what still lives inside it.
Today we are going to one of the most beautiful villages in Italy.
Day 6 on the Magna Via Francigena in Italy. After a croissant filled with ricotta and a coffee, we left the village and followed the signs, knowing we were now more than halfway through. That sounds beautiful. In reality, there was mud, spiky plants, a lot of climbing, and at one point a very real possibility that we were a little bit lost. Then we reached Acquaviva Platani, a tiny village where apparently you can buy a house for €1. Honestly, after that climb, it felt like a very reasonable life decision. And then we saw it, the great rock above Sutera, one of the most beautiful villages in Italy. After leaving our things at the church accommodation, we met again our old Sicilian friend.
Io mi chiamo Giorgio Piazza, sono adesso il vicepresidente della Magna Via Francigena, quindi sono anche un host e quindi accolgo i pellegrini a Castello di Sicilia. Consigli pratici, quello di portare tanta acqua perché la Sicilia è terra bella, disgraziata, ma soprattutto molto calda. Poi confrontarsi con l'associazione e scriverci una mail perché possiamo aiutarvi nell'organizzare al meglio questo cammino. E poi comunque prendere questo cammino con cuore aperto, accogliere tutto il calore che i siciliani sanno dare.
Then we climbed once more up Monte San Paolino for sunset, and up there we understood why they call it the balcony of Sicily.
We'll never make it. Agrigento, here we roll.
Day 7 on the Magna Via Francigena in Italy. We left Campofranco already a little too late, so the sun was already strong and the walk immediately felt harder. At some point we stopped for what was supposed to be a light snack. Somehow, just a little something turned into an antipasto della casa with fresh ricotta, chickpea soup, bean puree, cheese, ricotta omelette, pickles, potatoes, meatballs, and then naturally a full tray of baked pasta. We've been told this is the only Camino where you finish fatter than you started.
As if it wasn't enough, a guy who had a pastry shop gave us this.
That's why the stages are so long. Not to test your legs, just to give you enough time to digest before the next meal. Welcome to day number 8, with the cappuccino and the croissant with ricotta and chocolate in bed. If this isn't the best way to start a 25 kilometers walk, we don't know what is. Leaving Grotte, we reached Petra di Cala Tarsuderi, an ancient fortified rock whose name comes from Arabic and which still carries traces of the words that passed through here. Arab, Norman, and older still. From the top we could already see the next charming village in the distance. What we could not yet see was just how good the bakery would be, or those incredible pizza dough sandwiches waiting for us there. Recharged and feeling optimistic again, we stepped into one of the churches in Aragona, and once again Italy reminded us that when it comes to art, it is playing on a completely different level. And then, yes, we stopped again. Because on a walk like this, resistance is noble, but fresh Italian food is usually stronger.
I don't know if you're gonna get that today, yeah?
We stopped
Three
times
in the last half an hour.
And in the end, the long day finished exactly as it had started, with a generous portion of Italian magic: food. Because maybe that is the part people sometimes forget. In Italy, the way to the heart really does go through the belly.
And finally!
We made it!
Last day on the Magna Via Francigena. Here's one thing we've learned. Never celebrate too early, because just after the village, and we are lost again. And that's a lake of mud. Wow. Then we found a way back, and in the middle of nowhere we met a man who invited us for coffee. And honestly, that coffee carried us through the final climb into Agrigento. We went to collect our testimonium, the certificate that proves we really walked it. Then we reached our accommodation, a convent run by nuns, which felt like a very calm ending after all the small daily dramas. And because apparently finishing the Magna Via was not enough, we decided to celebrate properly with a visit to the Valley of the Temples, where some of the greatest Greek ruins in the world still stand, and to the necropolis, with its ancient catacombs carved into the rock. And obviously, we also ate a pizza. So in the end, we finished as we started, surrounded by food, by history, and by a land that still feels ready to be walked and discovered.
Ah, gelato!
No, this is not gelato.
This is not?
No.
Gelatino!
200 kilometers on foot, one Camino, the Magna Via Francigena, southern Italy, and the land that gave us back something we didn't know we needed. This was the first Camino we walked in Italy, even if it's my home country, and somehow, coming here felt healing. It felt like remembering. In a world that is often too rigid, too controlled, too obsessed with doing everything the right way, Sicily felt like a breath of fresh air. A place where people still bend, adapt, improvise, welcome. A place where rules seem softer and humanity comes first. Maybe now we can embrace that more than before. Maybe that is also why this journey opened the door to walking Italy more. Here people are proud of their land in such a beautiful way. Not proud in a distant way, but in a generous one. They want to show it to you, tell you about it, feed you, explain it, share its stories and legends as if passing on something alive. And maybe that is what moved us most. The beauty of imperfect things, of imperfect realities, of villages that are not polished for tourists, but lived in, of people who do not perform kindness, they simply live it. In a world that wants everything clear, fixed and efficient, Sicily reminded us that sometimes there are no rules, only exceptions. And that simplicity still has power. There is something deeply touching in sitting with an 81-year-old man who was born in his village and never really left it, and realizing that the whole world can still exist inside one life, one accent, one memory. There is something healing in being treated again and again as if you were someone's child. People making sure you drank, ate, rested. People noticing when you looked lost and stepping in to help before you even asked. People still caring about others. Thank you, Sicily, for reminding us.